by far the most common question that I get asked is, where do you start with a book? I'm not quite sure where to start. Well, I want to give you a glimpse, just a little snippet of what we will do in our first session. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all of those ideas that you've got swimming around in your head, and we're going to turn them into a structure that you can then go and take and write your book. Let me show you really quickly how it happens. Now, most people come to me with, oh, I want to write about this, and I want to write about that, and I want to write about that, but there's no through line, there's no thing that makes complete sense about it. So what we do is we start with the question, what will someone now know how to do when they've finished reading your book? What will be the thing that they'll know how to do? And, you know, if you're writing on leadership, then they're going to know how to lead better. If you're writing on sales, they're going to know how to sell better. If you're writing about resilience, they're going to know what the principles of resilience are. So what we call that is your why. We start with the very middle of the circle as, why will someone read your book? Let's get clear on that. And it's answering that question that people are asking, why should I read your book? Now, once we get that, we can then say, okay, so once they've done that, what are the outcomes? So if, in my case, you know, it's a book about culture, how to build winning teams, the why is about how do you build high-performance winning teams. The outcomes of that are that you have highly committed team, highly aligned team, and highly engaged team. And these are the elements that we call the outcomes or the insights. So that's these ones here. So if we think about these are the outcomes. And, you know, there's usually 3 different outcomes. You know, the outcomes, you know, in my case could be commitment, better committed team, more engaged team, more aligned to the company's goals or the business's goals. So they're the outcomes. Now, in order to achieve those outcomes, we're going to focus on 3 things. So the question for you and your book is, what are the 3 pillars of that? So in my book, which is all about building winning teams through culture, there are 3 pillars. The first pillar, so this is the first pillar. In my case, the first pillar is leadership. The second pillar, in my case, is culture. And the third pillar, in my case, is skills. Now, it doesn't matter what you're teaching. You know, it might be sales, it might be leadership, it might be healthy, you know, health and well-being, whatever it is, there are 3 pillars that you work on. So when we start with the why, this second layer is actually the how layer, right? So it's how you are going to achieve the result that you achieve. So once you've understood why reading this book is important and what the outcomes are of that book, now you want to know how we're going to do it. Well, these are the 3 pillars. In my case, leadership, culture, and skills or capability. So what is that for your book? Now, once we know what those pillars are, what we want to do is find out, okay, what happens if we don't get this right? So in my case, if we don't get leadership right, what happens? So if we have no leadership, we have no direction, right, with the team. They don't know where they're going. And in my case in the book, if they have no culture, they have no teamwork. And without any teamwork, you've got no progress. So no teamwork, no progress. And if they don't have the skills, now if I'm playing on a soccer team and I'm coaching a team and my skills are simply better than yours, you have no chance. But what is it for your book? What is it for your pillars? So if they don't have this pillar right, they have no this. If they don't have this pillar right, they have no that. If they don't have that pillar right, they have no that. Because these are the problems that people come to me with. These are the problems that people will come to you with your book. They'll say, yes, my team has no direction. We have no teamwork and we're not making any progress and our skills aren't great enough, so we just don't have any team. How do we fix all that? Well, that's where the chapters come into play. Now, this is the structure, the framework around which you're building your book, but now we get down to the chapters. So here we have a look at chapter 1. So we might go, okay, leadership. What is the main, what is the first chapter on leadership? And we'll come up with something there. Then chapter 2, then chapter 3, then chapter, then we might go to the second pillar. Okay, this becomes chapter 4. So if I think about leadership, I think, okay, clarity. Chapter 1 is all about clarity. Chapter 2 is all about behaviours, and chapter 3 is all about feedback and failure. They're the three principal elements for me when I think about leadership. What is it for your book? What are those three elements? Because this is how we get your book in shape. Chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8, chapter 9. Now here's the really interesting thing about this. If we think about what we're doing here, we've now got the how layer, but we've also got the what layer. Now what you'll notice about this is that there is a very famous author and speaker called Simon Sinek, and he's created this model called the Golden Circle. And this lines up very, very closely with the Golden Circle. Most people are good at telling you what, and that's what you guys will mostly come to me with. You'll come with what you want to write about. But the really clever people will start to create a how layer. This is how you achieve this. And the best communicators in the world start with why. That's Simon Sinek's model. So I've built the book writing structure around that principle because it's very, very persuasive. It's a really good way of thinking about it. Now, we have a quick look at this and we say, okay, in fact, this isn't chapter 1. The first chapter is actually about the why. It's about, why does this book exist? Why should you read it? Chapter 2 is actually about the outcomes. And we have a look at the outcomes. What are the outcomes? Let's describe what they are. And chapter 3 is the problems, the no layer. Right? What do people normally experience on this topic? What are the problems? Chapter 4 is now we're explaining the pillars, the three pillars. And now we've given people a really solid framework around how to understand what we're about to teach them. Now, chapter 5 is in fact where we start here. And of course, you can start anywhere on this circle. You might start around here at chapter 1, and chapter 2's here, and chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. We work it around because it all fits with this framework. And when someone understands how each chapter fits into the through line of your book, everything will make sense and writing your book becomes really easy. So once we gather all those ideas, that's what we do in the game plan session. And we get this structure together so you can easily start writing what your chapters, you can start writing the content, and the next step is I'll show you how to actually write a chapter, how to structure it with a story, content, and some persuasive writing and language. So really looking forward to showing you a bit more about this, but this is where we start with writing a book.